you need to be able to visualize who you are capable of becoming. And look, I understand that's not going to be a perfect thing, but you have to be able to at least capture in its essence the future you. And why is that so important? There was a study done by the same doctor, psychiatrist that did the marshmallow study. That marshmallow study was delayed gratification on kids. They then followed those kids and said, how did they do later in life? Long story short, those that delayed the gratification, didn't take the initial marshmallow, waited 15 minutes and got two, did better throughout their lives. We've seen that his studies were proven in our world and in real life application. So that same doctor, did another study. And what he did was he took people and he put them inside of an fMRI machine, a functional MRI machine. And this machine scanned the brain activity when the participants were told to think about something. And in this case, they were told to think about different versions of themselves in comparison with thinking of a stranger. So the first group, in the first round of studies, he came in and he said, hey, I want you to think about your current self, and I want to see what part of the brain lights up. As he did that, he recognized that the self center of the brain lit up. Great. That makes sense. You're thinking of yourself, self center of the brain lights up. He then said, I want you to think about somebody else. The stranger part of the brain lit up, saying, this is not the self center. It's not me. I'm thinking about somebody else. Different part of the brain lit up within that thought process. This is where it got interesting. He then said, I want you to think about yourself in 10 years. And this is what he found. Many of the people, if not most, not only did they not have the self center of the brain lit up, but they had the stranger part of the brain light up as they were told to think about themselves in 10 years. So what this means is that as common humanity, we have an issue identifying who we are going to be in the future. So why is that a problem? Well, if we cannot identify that person in the future as us, we're going to be less inclined to do what it takes now to become that person, because the actions that we see now that we're doing in our present self are not going to be received by our present self. They are going to be received by the future version of ourselves. That person is going to reap all the benefits. So if we cannot identify ourselves with that future version, essentially our mind is saying, you're doing all the work now, somebody else is going to receive it in the future and get those benefits. And so now we think, well, wow, if I'm not going to be receiving those things myself, my brain recognizes that as a stranger receiving the benefits and outcome of all my hard work. What's the point in doing the hard work? And that is what we need to overcome. That is why we need to identify and bridge the gap between future version and current version, because then once we do that, we are now more inclined to do the effort that it takes, put in the effort now, do the work that it takes to get that perceived outcome, because when we bridge that gap, we realize I will be the one receiving it, not a stranger. When that happens, we're more disciplined in our actions. We see it less as a sacrifice to do the things now, to put off instant gratification, as he did in his first study, to then be able to get what we want in the future, because we are now recognizing that it is going to be received by us. And this is why I teach and lean so heavily on name to aim. Visualize that best version of yourself. Identify who that person is to you. What kind of characteristics do they embody? What virtues do they have? What have they accomplished in their lives? What kind of attitude do they have? How do they encounter hardships? What kind of relationships do they have? What kind of friendships do they have? What kind of people are they surrounded by? What are they doing as a career? All of these things that go into the future desired state need to be identified. And again, that will change over time. I understand that. Nothing is going to be perfect. And with each year comes a new version of us and a new desired future. I get that. But we need to be able to see at least 3 years out who is the best version of us. And what is it going to take to get there? And how can I bridge the gap between that person and the current me, so that the actions that I take now are not seen as a sacrifice, but as a choice that I consciously make in order to become that better future version of me. That's what it's going to take. You have to bridge that gap. So, as you're thinking about what can you be working on to become the best version of you, clearly define that. Identify who you want to be, write it all out, get it out of your head onto paper, make it a reality, create a plan to get there. And as you do, the steps that you take to achieve that will be less of a sacrifice, more of a choice, which will increase your happiness on a day-to-day basis and allow you to persist over the long term. You are stronger than your pain, my friend. You got this.